Hello, my name is Brianne Suldovsky, and I'm an assistant professor of science, environment, and risk communication at Portland State University. I will be presenting results from a project that was supported through a partnership between Portland State University, the City of Portland Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and Portland General Electric. Today's talk will be a brief summary of project results. Please feel free to contact me for a copy of our complete report. I will have a copy of my contact information listed at the end. The funding for this project was provided by Portland State's Digital City Testbed Center and Portland General Electric. The goal of this project was to better understand public perception of air pollution in Portland, including public perception of air quality sensors, in an effort to inform the creation of community-informed engagement strategies. We collected survey data from a representative sample of Portland residents using a Qualtrics survey panel between March and April of this year. In the survey, we measured public perception of science and technology, including support for the placement of air quality sensors, public levels of knowledge, behavior, information seeking, and engagement preferences. Science and technology can offer solutions to environmental problems like air pollution. How confident public groups are in the ability of science and technology to solve environmental problems can impact how accepting they are of those solutions and how worried they are about environmental risks like air pollution. Generally speaking, we found that the Portland public is moderately confident in the ability of science and technology to solve environmental problems, and that they hold a very strong belief that most environmental problems can be solved by applying more or better technology. We were also interested in public support for sensor placement. We asked how supportive our participants were in air quality sensors being placed in a variety of locations, including near their homes, in their neighborhoods, in major traffic areas, and in schools. We found broad support for air quality sensor placement across all locations, with the highest level of support for placement near major traffic areas and schools. Regarding sensor type, we were interested in whether the public would favor lower quality but more cost-effective sensors in multiple locations or many locations, or if they would prefer higher quality sensors in fewer locations. To do this, we provided the question that you see on the screen. We said there are two different types of air pollution sensors. One, high-quality air pollution instruments that provide the best scientific data. However, they are expensive, require power and space and time to maintain and calibrate, so regulators and scientists can only monitor a few areas of Portland at a time. Low-quality pollution sensors provide scientific data that is less reliable and informative. However, they are more cost-effective and easier to use, so regulators and scientists can monitor many more areas in Portland at a time. Given the information above, if you had to choose between using high-quality sensors in fewer locations or placing low-quality sensors in many locations, which would you prefer? As you can see, about half of our participants preferred higher quality sensors in fewer locations, and only about a third preferred lower quality sensors in many locations. Importantly, about a quarter, or 23%, indicated that they didn't have a preference between the two. Another variable of interest for us was public knowledge about air pollution. Assessing public understanding and knowledge can aid us in informing communication content. For example, it can help us identify any gaps in understanding that should be addressed before moving on to issues like solutions or public policy. It can also let us know if there's an assumed level of knowledge of other groups that is inaccurate or may lead to misunderstandings among public groups. So we measured knowledge in two ways, using self-report, where we simply asked people how much they knew about air pollution in their neighborhoods, and an objective measure where we asked them to indicate the most common or the biggest source of air pollution in their neighborhood. We found that self-reported knowledge is fairly low, so about one-fifth of participants indicated that they had a good amount or a lot of understanding, a lot of knowledge about air pollution in their neighborhoods. 45% indicated they knew nothing or very little, and about a third indicated they knew a moderate amount. So self-reported knowledge levels were fairly low. We did find that less than 1/5 believed air pollution is a difficult thing to know or understand. So we asked how easy or difficult it is to know about pollution levels in their neighborhoods. And while they believed it was a fairly easy thing to understand, very few indicated they actually had high levels of knowledge. To assess objective knowledge levels, we gave them a list of potential pollution sources and asked them to indicate which one was the biggest source of pollution in their neighborhood. We found that most participants selected industrial sources and personal vehicles as the primary source of air pollution, while very few saw heavy-duty trucks or construction sites as primary pollution sources. In terms of assumptions that the public is making about the knowledge level of other groups, we asked them to indicate how well they think the following groups understand air pollution and gave them a list of external sources, including the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, scientists, the EPA, neighborhood organizations, state government, city and local government, and federal government. We found on average that scientists and state and local government agencies were assumed to understand air pollution fairly well, while the federal government was ranked the lowest among participants. Importantly, we did find a statistically significant difference across political ideology, with conservatives having less faith in the knowledge levels of external sources than liberals, with the exception of EPA and federal government, though we believe this similarity between political ideological groups with the EPA and federal government is more a reflection on the current administration and less a reflection on liberals' actual views of the EPA and the federal government generally. In addition to knowledge levels, we wanted to know what type of individual level and civic level behaviors participants would be likely to engage in if they were faced with poor air quality. Knowing what our public is and isn't doing, or is and isn't likely to do, can inform what recommendations we make to them regarding behavior. And it can help identify low-hanging fruit, so you'll be able to see what behaviors people are likely to engage in and then encourage those behaviors. For individual level behaviors, we found that most participants, when faced with incidents of poor air quality, would be likely to close their windows and use indoor filtration systems, but fewer, comparatively speaking, would avoid going outside or be willing to wear a mask. In terms of civic engagement, we found that most participants are willing to vote for pro-air quality candidates, but very few are willing to do things like testify in front of policymakers about air pollution in their neighborhoods. Finally, we wanted to know how to best communicate with and engage with the Portland public about air quality issues. Knowing where people go for information and what type of information they look for is incredibly useful because you can use this information to ensure that you're providing people with the information they are actually looking for and want. You can use it to select communication mediums that people are already comfortable using. And you can even use information source data to analyze the content of popularly or frequently used information sources to better understand what type of communication your audience is exposed to, or what type of information they are seeing on the sources that they are using. We found that overall information seeking is fairly low and infrequent. Only about 19% of our sample had looked for air quality information frequently in the last 6 months. However, search engines and government websites were the most popular information sources that participants indicated that they used. When we asked them what type of information they look for or would look for if they were to look for information, we found that levels of air pollution was by far the most common type of information they indicated that they wanted. Importantly, we also asked how satisfied participants were with the information that was provided to them. And most participants who indicated that they had looked for information in the last 6 months said that they were very satisfied or very satisfied with the information that they had found. In terms of trust in information sources, we found that air quality scientists in Oregon's university system were the most trusted sources of information, while state and federal governments were the least trusted sources of information about air pollution. Of course, public engagement isn't always just about supplying public groups with scientific information. It can take on many forms, including public forums and town halls. And in Portland, many nonprofit groups and others stage town halls or host town halls where they invite public groups to attend and have one-on-one conversations with policymakers and air quality experts. Knowing what types of engagement your audience prefers should be a central component to any public engagement campaign or communication plan. To that end, we asked participants to rank a host of options for engagement from most to least preferred. We found that most people prefer to get air quality information from websites and via email, and very few prefer talking one-on-one with policymakers or air quality experts or attending a public forum when those other methods of engagement or information are available, like websites and email. Of course, the results presented here are not exhaustive. There's quite a bit of data that we didn't get a chance to cover today. If you would like a copy of the complete report, which includes notes about demographic differences for the variables discussed here, we are happy to share it with you. To get a copy, please reach out to me via email or on Twitter. My email address is brisul33@pdx.edu. I also have my website listed here. You can contact me there, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at Suldovsky. Thank you so much for your time.